What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be very important as we have the FOMC meeting and Jerome Powell giving a very important speech, which is going to shake the markets. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So, as you guys probably already know, Trump has won the election and the market is going bananas. The market's on fire. It's squeezing like crazy. In my video yesterday, I did predict that that would happen if we ended up getting a Trump victory. And particularly, I called out Coinbase, Bitcoin, and Tesla to get some of the biggest moves. That is correct. That's exactly what happened. Tesla is up 14%. Coinbase is up 30%. Bitcoin's up 10%. We did call that out, and that's what happened thus far. So the question is, what's going to happen from this point on? And just know this, guys. If you guys were happy about the election, what happened, that's great. Congratulations, guys. You got your victory. If you're not happy about it, I know there's a lot of noise right now. Let me just say this, okay? Don't let this get to you, okay? I'm going to be 100% real about that. Yes, this could affect you, everyone in the country to some extent, sure. But at the same time, use this as an opportunity to improve your own self, keep your heads up, improve your household, and clean your room, do whatever needs to be done. And no matter what, do not lose hope, do not lose faith. I'm just trying to be very, very unbiased when I say this. I want to be, in favor of both sides. Also, like the same thing could have been said about Harris if she had won. I'd say the same thing to the other side as well. So no matter what, for all people, keep your heads up. The future is very bright. And I also want to say that for the Tesla investors out there, have faith. Elon Musk endorsed Trump. He's going to be working on a lot of departments, and they have a lot of work to do together. So I'm calling that out because I do have faith in Elon Musk that he's going to do a good job. And I really, really just want to put my faith in him. So I'm not trying to say you have to support him or like him in any way, shape, or form, but I do believe that he is doing what he deems to be best for our country. I just want to say I give my respect to everyone that has been involved. So I give respect to Harris and her supporters. I give respect to Trump and his supporters. I'm here to be in the middle. And I just want to give you guys a very unbiased analysis moving forward. All right. So with that being said, Trump is the president. At this point, he's going to officially take power in just a couple of months. I know about that, but I'm just trying to say that he has won the election and he will once again cause a lot of changes politically. So the market's getting a very positive reaction so far, and there's no sign of the market stopping. If you look at the way the market's moving, it's like a giant locomotive. It has so much momentum, and the momentum is continuing to help it push. So health, technology, consumer non-durables were a little bit weaker, but it's technology, retail trade, utilities, and the list goes on. The majority of tickers were in the green. The sectors were pushing, especially many consumer durables such as Tesla. The market is more green. We saw a lot of tech pushing. That's as a result of this. So now the question is, what's going to affect us moving forward? What's going to affect Tesla? We have another big catalyst for tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, November 7th, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have some jobs numbers like initial jobs claims and the labor costs reports. But besides that, everything else is quite minor, at least until 2 p.m. So we have some jobs numbers and minor data until 2 p.m. That's when things get very serious. At 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the interest rate hike decision coming out from the Fed. The Fed is going to give us most likely a 25 basis point cut. If they go more aggressive, that'll be even more bullish for the markets. If not, if they don't give us a cut, that's going to be a little bit more bearish. I don't expect that, though. I think they're most likely going to give us that 25 basis point cut. Then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, we have the press conference with the big guy, Jerome Powell, giving his speech. Now, know this. Trump is the president, and he is pressuring Powell to be more dovish. He's telling Powell to cut rates even more. He also made comments about how, he's not, that big of a proponent of that of Powell. He's not really in favor of him. He also mentioned that he believes that the Fed, they basically raised rates too late and they started cutting too late as well. That's what Trump has said. So now he is incentivizing Powell to cut rates even more and quickly. So just keep that in mind. Powell is going to be asked about that tomorrow. When Powell starts asking questions, we'll see what kind of volatility this causes in the markets. We are expecting a 97.5% chance we get a 25 basis point cut, guys. So just remember that. We're most likely going to get that kind of cut. The market is very, very optimistic. It's more greedy now as more buyers have stepped in. Momentum also remains a lot more greedy as we're approaching the 6,000 area for the S&P 500. then the put to call option ratio is still going up because of the fact that there's a lot more people buying puts. So the shorts were piling in before the election, and that's causing the market to squeeze. On top of this, we're seeing the VIX dumping, and there's no sign of it bouncing as well. The market remains bullish. So the market, what tends to happen is we do tend to be very choppy on the FOMC days, at least in the morning. Then we tend to see a big reaction after we get the data. So I'll be watching for that. For earnings, just know this. Today, we just got ARM and AMC announcing their earnings. Both of them have decent earnings, but overall, the share prices still dropped because it wasn't really enough to wow investors. So ARM essentially had a beat on EPS at 30 cents per share, above estimations at 26 cents. And then they also had revenue at 844 million. That's above expectations, but their guidance had a big range between 920 and 970 million. We're expecting at least 940 million. So because it's kind of like outside of that range to some extent, and because of other factors like that, we saw the share price dip for ARM. For AMC, it's the same thing. It's very manipulated. So this is a little bit different. This saw strong revenue growth. Revenue is at 1.33 billion after the big movies that came out for Q3. However, let me just call this out. Just know that they did beat on EPS a little bit. They had a loss of 6 cents, which is above the 7-cent projections. However, it wasn't enough to wow investors because they're still at a loss. That's something that's worth mentioning. So unfortunately, there's still a loss for the company. It wasn't really enough to get investors excited, and we did see some downside on AMC. If you look at the share price, like right now, it's actually, I think, in the red. It's down 5% in the after hours, like I was looking at. So AMC's in the red, guys. Keep that in mind. Some news about Tesla. Tesla's continuing to rocket because, like I said before, Musk has endorsed Trump, and he is very optimistic about it. We saw other EVs sell off because of the policy changes that are coming, especially to the important tax incentives. So with that change, that is technically a little bit more negative for Tesla. But the reason why Tesla is doing well is because Musk said, look, overall, Trump's presidency is actually going to benefit Tesla more. Tesla's not going to be as impacted by those incentives. It's not going to affect them as much. That's what Musk is saying. And he believes their sales are going to remain strong nonetheless. And he was also talking about the long term and the kind of like economic view of it. So that's what Musk's view happens to be. You could agree or disagree with him, but because Musk holds that view and has been pushing that, the share price still ran even though Trump had won and other EVs ended up falling. So just keep that in mind. Tesla's an anomaly because of Elon Musk and his campaigning and other factors like that. This is also bullish for Tesla. Tesla has a lot more upside potential, especially going into next year. Just keep that in mind. For Tesla, Piper Sandler gave them an overweight rating. Barclays is kind of neutral on them. We also saw the price-price ratio go up because Tesla's building a lot of strength like a locomotive. It's building a lot of power right now. On top of this, you guys can see that Thursdays tend to be green only about 48% of the time. So it tends to be a weaker day historically, but Fridays tend to be stronger. November tends to be a strong month historically for Tesla as we're green about 60% of the time. And we tend to see more volatility around 1 p.m. and also during the second to last hour of the day. So with that being said, so far things are looking quite interesting. Volume also went up to about 163 million, so it's above average, which is a good sign for Tesla. The volume is back. We're seeing buyers stepping in, and there's a lot more exposure coming to the stock. With that being said, let's now focus on what's going on with the markets. I'm going to make the second half of this video just about technical analysis and nothing else. So what is technical analysis telling us about Tesla? Well, basically, Tesla has these key levels to watch for. It's very simple. If Tesla breaks 290, we're bullish. This is going to be breaking out for 292 and then 295. Get above 295 and we easily go up to 300, which is a very important psychological barrier. However, if we end up dipping, we're looking for supports very close to this 285 area. If that fails us, our next main support is going to be around 280. If that were to fail us, we're looking for the low of the day to be retested. And if that fails, we're looking for a bigger dump back down towards these lows. So lose 280 and 275 and we turn more bearish. 275, is very significant. That's very close to where we had this previous resistance becoming support. So if we lose 280 and 275, we're bearish. Break 290, we're more bullish. We're looking for 292 and 295 as our targets. Right now, let me just say, Tesla dipped, then it got bought back up. It dipped and got bought back up. So the buyers are still here. They're still buying this thing up very nicely. So it remains more bullish. In my opinion, we might see Tesla dip a little bit to grab liquidity around 285 tomorrow morning, but then it could bounce easily and start to retest 290 all over again. And we'll see if Tesla could break that. It may attempt to break those highs because right now the share price is still more bullish. And we could be looking for 292 and maybe even 295 as potential targets. There might be a small push in the morning. But then after we get that push, I anticipate the whole market's going to consolidate for a bit, just like how it kind of did today for some time. So there might be some consolidation coming as time goes on. So a little bit of a push and consolidation. And then we're going to be reacting to what we see from the FOMC meeting. Will the Fed cause a rug pull? Will the Fed launch the market higher? We'll see. My bias is a bit more to the upside looking at the charts, but we'll see just to be safe because with the Fed and Jerome Powell, sometimes you never know. So Tesla has more upside potential, looks more bullish overall as it's getting bought back up. It could push a little bit higher tomorrow morning before it consolidates. Then we'll see what happens with the FOMC. For SPY, we're bullish. Now, if we were to lose 590, I'm looking at 588 as our main support. If 588 fails us, we're looking for an attempt to get back down to 585. And if that fails us, we're going down to 583. If we're bullish, look at 592.5 and 594 as our targets if we hold above 590. And if 594 breaks, we're looking for a bigger push to higher levels. I think that SPY in the 4 hours is looking more bullish, and I think this is favoring the upside direction. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a push for 592.5 tomorrow morning, then some consolidation as the day goes on. We'll see about the consolidation. Like I said before, this is like a locomotive. It has so much momentum. So it should be pushing a little bit higher than consolidate a little bit before we get FOMC, which could cause an even bigger move up or even a dump. So we'll wait for that. But look for the bias being a little bit more to the upside tomorrow as there's still more buyers present. There's no sign of a big rejection yet. And when SPY dipped in the morning as profit taking was happening, we saw buyers come back. So the buyers are still there. They're trying to push the market higher, and we could be looking for new all-time highs tomorrow. That's the most likely case, in my opinion, for that 592 and maybe even 594 target. For ES, we're looking at this resistance near 5980. If this breaks, we're looking for 6,000. If we lose support right here at 5940, we're going back down towards 5920. I think this is favoring a push for 5980 tomorrow morning. Then we'll see if we consolidate around there. Can we break it or not? We'll have to see. And then after we get that kind of like sideways phase, the FOMC meeting is going to either cause us to push up for 6,000 or we get a rug pull. We'll see what happens with Jerome Powell, but the bias does remain to the upside. For Nvda, we are more bullish. We're breaking out very nicely. If we hold above 144, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards 140. The high up here around 146.5, and eventually 148 and 150 are next. If we end up losing 144, though, we could be dipping back down to 140, 142. So we'll be watching to see which way this ends up going. I favor upside a little bit more for an attempt to push up for 146.5 and maybe 148 if that breaks. Then some consolidation. We'll see if the FOMC meeting launches this up to about 150 or if we get the rug pull, but nonetheless, Nvidia still remains bullish. As long as we don't lose 144, we do favor upside. So just keep that in mind. Bitcoin's bullish, but it is hitting a tough resistance here. Might dip a little bit towards 75,000 to 74,500 in that range. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not. So look for a little bit more downside and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. I think Bitcoin's going to dip a little bit before it tries to bounce again. So the lower 75,000 to 74,500 range should be coming before we see a bounce and a push back up towards 77,000. Why do I say that? Because when you look at the trend on Bitcoin, it's bullish. We're actually making higher highs and higher lows. We've been doing this for the last couple of months. So look for a small dip back down to about 74,500 to 75,000. And then we should be bouncing and continuing this push for another breakout. Overall, Bitcoin remains bullish. For other tickers out there, like I said about Tesla, the same thing is basically, what I'm anticipating. NQ is looking a little bit more bullish because we have this target up here, very close to that 21,000 area near the all-time high. So I think that NQ is going there. Tomorrow morning, we could attempt to get back up to about 20,900, which if we break, we're looking for 21,000. And then if we reject here, it's going to be the all-time high. So we'll see how it responds to that. Will we reject off 21,000? Do we continue to break out? I do anticipate a little bit more upside, and we'll see how it does from there. It could break out higher depending on FOMC, so we'll have to wait on that. QQQ is also at all-time highs. So we look at 505 as a tough, 506, is a tough resistance. If we lose 505, I think we could be revisiting the 502 area, which is where we had this high. And if that fills us, we're looking for 500. If we break past 506.5, we're looking for 508 and eventually 510. I favor the QQQ is going to try to push a little bit higher for 508, then consolidate in a range for a little bit of time. Then we'll see how things end up going moving forward as we have essentially new catalyst out there. So look for a little bit more upside and consolidation, and then we'll see what happens with FOMC. Does it launch us up to the 510s, or do we get a big rug pull back down to 500? We'll see what happens with Jerome Powell's speech. Aapl could be dipping a little bit more as we're looking a little bit more bearish on this trend. We're losing some momentum here. I could be looking for a test of 220. Once that comes, don't turn too bearish. We could be bouncing off that as there's a lot of buyers stepping in right there. So look for a dip and then potentially a bounce on Aapl is the most likely technical move. Then we'll see what happens with FOMC. So give it some time to develop. For Neo, I called out the possibility of there being a very nice looking head and shoulders, and this is panning out very nicely so far. If $5 fails, this could be dumping all the way down towards the fours. 4.64 would be my first target. Well, 4.8 then 4.64. But there is some bearish momentum building, so we'll see what happens with Neo. For Netflix, we look more bullish. If we were to hypothetically lose this resistance becoming support around these ranges, so if we end up losing 775, we're looking for 768 as our support, then 760. If we break out above 780, we're looking for 784. I believe that the most likely potential move is us pushing for 784 and eventually 786. So I anticipate a little bit more upside for Netflix to push into the higher 780s. It does look more bullish for now, but we'll see what happens with FOMC. CELH is still more bearish. We did push a little bit. We could be looking for a potential Fibonacci retracement that's forming. Right over here, we could actually draw this out. And then we could be looking for these fib level tests that could be coming. So I wouldn't be surprised if we push up for the 0.5 retracement around 30.5, and we'll see if we reject off that or not. So look for a little bit more upside before it attempts to reject. There is a risk of that potentially coming, so be careful with CELH. For Palantir, we look more bullish. As long as we don't lose 55, I'm favoring a pushback up to 58. If 55 does fail, still we're looking for a move back down towards 53.8, then eventually back down to 52. But nonetheless, we are favoring upside for 58. For Supermicro, we look a little bit more bearish after the momentum that's building. We could be dipping closer to about that 20 area, so we'll see how it reacts to that. Look for a retest of 20. If we bounce off that, we could be going back up for a bounce. If not, we're going to turn more bearish. So it's trying to base at 20. We'll have to see how well it does. I anticipate it's going to test 20 tomorrow, and we'll see how it goes. Rivian is more bearish after Trump's victory. Same thing, same setup as CELH or Celsius. We could draw out a handy-dandy fib retracement, kind of look at this very carefully. So if you want to start from this high, from where we got this like little bounce, draw it out like this. We could be attempted to get back up here, very close to $10 before we get a rejection. So I'm anticipating that as the most likely move. So look and see if we push up closer to 10 and we'll see how it reacts. Could get a rejection off of that, but look for a little bit more upside just to start things off. Then we'll see what happens with FOMC. So if I pumped and dumped, it might be coming down to fill this gap. If we lose 11.6, we're looking for a move back down for about 11.4 before it tries to bounce again. So I find that to be a little bit more probable depending on FOMC, of course, but there might be a little bit of a dip before we get a bounce. For the IWM, we are a little bit more bullish, but we're range bound. We have 238. That zone is our resistance. If that breaks, we're looking for 240. And we have support at 235. I presume we're just going to consolidate for a bit, and there might be a push coming as it remains bullish. As long as we don't lose 235, I favor upside. Overall, it's doing a good job at holding up, so look for some consolidation. Then we'll see what happens after our event. AMD is trying to bounce right here. It's trying to base at 140. As long as we're above 144.7, we're looking for a pushback up for the one. Let me double check this real quick. 146 is going to be coming, followed by 149.41. If we fail to hold above 144, though, we could be dipping back down to the lows around 141. So far, we look a little bit more bullish. We are favoring upside for this imbalance fill, and I think we might be pushing closer to where I said. So it looks a little bit more bullish. We'll see what happens with FOMC. ARM is more bearish after earnings, might be dipping closer to 135 if 137 fails us, so it looks more bearish. Coin is more bullish. It pumped super, super nicely, but it is due to pull back a little bit. Could be retesting 244, then 240, and maybe bouncing off one of those levels. So it could dip a little bit more before it tries to rebound. So watch and see how things end up going. Amazon's pushing very nicely. We have this resistance to watch for around 207. Our main support's around 204. We could be dipping back down to 204 or so before it tries to bounce again. But look for a little bit more downside. As long as we don't lose 204, I do favor the bounce. If 204 does fail us, though, we're going to be dipping back down to 202 and then 200. I think we're going to be dipping to 204, and then we may attempt to bounce off of that, so keep that in mind. For Meta, we have a big test tomorrow. We have 573.5 being tested. If that breaks, we're going up to about 580. If that rejects, we're dipping back down to 570, then eventually back down to about 565. I'm favoring 573.5, then eventually higher levels if that breaks, so we'll see how things end up going. For Microsoft, we have 421 as our resistance. If this breaks, we go up towards 425, excuse me. If we don't break 421, we could reject. So I do expect a little bit more of a push, a little bit more upside. It might pump a few more points, and we'll see if it rejects off 421 or not. It could also depend on FOMC. Google has resistance at 178 and 180 above that. We'll see how well this could hold above 178. If not, we're going to be dipping back down to about 176.8 and eventually back down to about 175. So give this the time it needs. AMC had its earnings is actually dipping right now, so we'll see how well it bases around 4.2. So keep that in mind. Might dip a little bit more. DJT could dip a little bit more as well, back down towards the 31.6 area, then eventually 28, 30, then 28. But then it could bounce off of those. The VIX is dipping. There's no sign of a bounce quite yet. The 10-year is going to react to what happens with FOMC for tomorrow, so we're waiting for that. Same thing with the dollar. We'll see what Jerome Powell ends up causing with his speech tomorrow. So with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. I know the election may have gone the way most, or at least a lot of people wanted, and it also may have gone the opposite. Like, a lot of people may have not liked it that way. So it is what it is, guys. Just keep your guys' heads up. Don't worry. And just know that the future remains bright nonetheless. As far as Tesla goes, we are bullish right now. There's no sign of us getting a big rejection. So keep your heads up, guys, and don't necessarily worry. I thank you all so much for listening. Get ready for tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow before the market opens to give you guys another update. Get ready for FOMC as well, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thank you for listening. Have a great night, and peace out.